Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR. And I'm your host, the counselor. We're going to be talking about a rather serious subject that I'm very concerned about. Some of our children seem to be falling prey to these prescription painkillers. And see, what we fail to understand is that they're getting access to these drugs through medical physicians. And the truth be told is that a lot of them who uh, get themselves injured from maybe being in gymnastics, trampolines, sports related injuries, being on the monkey bars, running into coffee tables or sharp corners, even being burned by hot soup. All of these are sources of children's injuries. And no matter what the trauma, many of these patients, these young people, are in pain. And there's a lot of publicity around opioids and treating injured children's pain. And it's getting a little bit complicated. Often it can be an emotional issue, even for the doctors, because, see, pain can often be eased with like ibuprofen. And this could be something that helps with broken bones, but to the degree of pain that these children are feeling, they need something a little bit more intense than the basic Tylenol 1 and 2. See, severe injuries that cause excruciating pain usually require something stronger like an opioid. And this is how it gets into our hands, right? To the hands of our children. See, we're living in this era of opioid abuse and overdose. We have a crisis, right? And we're not really conversating the way we need to around these medications, such as morphine and fentanyl to control the pain. And this can be difficult for patients and parents. No one wants to be a part of statistics, their children to go down the drain because of these drugs. And unfortunately, these drugs are more potent than they've ever been, right? This illicit opioid poisoning in the States and in Canada is run rampant, and our children are under the influence of these drugs, and when it gets out of control you could see the effects. The kids losing control of their behaviors, becoming addicted, becoming homeless, ultimately some of them dying from it. I mean, in a 10-year span we've lost approximately 20,000 youth between Canada and United States. In a 10-year span, that means 20,000. And the numbers just keep climbing. And it's unfortunate that we can't get a hold of this thing. And I'm very concerned. So, this is something that we need to talk about today. It's very worrying. I mean, our prescriptions that we're giving our children are taking over their lives. It's having long term effects. You see, prescription opioids sometimes they're called painkillers, and they're the most commonly misused substances, even here in Ontario, right? So even when they're used appropriately, they can be effective in treating severe pain. But as you know, the opioids can also produce a state of euphoria. Basically, there are two types of opioid pain pills. There's the over the counter opioids, which includes drugs containing codeine, such as 222s, and Tylenol 1. And then you have the opioids that must be prescribed by a doctor or a dentist, which include Tylenol 2 and 3 and 4. Oxyneo, which is some of you may know as, or formerly know as OxyContin, or Demerol, or Percocet, right? Or Tramadol, or Darvon. These are drugs that are more intense and harmful and addictive. And why am I concerned? And I need to talk about this. I'm seeing things that are very concerning. And with pandemic, services being delayed and not being provided, the focus on the pandemic, but we're losing our children even faster now. So my concern is that many parents do not realize the extent of prescription opioid misuse, right? Even use without a prescription. among youth the effects and the risks of this non-medical use. See, recently prescription opioids used non-medially have replaced tobacco. And that's the third most common used drug among Ontario teens alone. About 14 to 15% are using that, behind alcohol and marijuana. Our younger students, particularly those in the grades 7 and 8, they're misusing opioids at a far greater rate. They're trying to cope. Even now, they're using more because of this stress, isolation, and loneliness, right? And it's sad because they're using it more than even marijuana in certain cases at these ages. See, many young people mistakenly believe that prescription opioids are safer than street drugs. They think that because opioids are prescribed medicines, that if they use these drugs, it's not as dangerous as using drugs such as cocaine or methamphetamines. This is definitely not true. Opioids are powerful medications, and misusing them can be very harmful for a variety of reasons. They can be addictive. That means that physical dependency, where over time the body gets used to the drug and develops tolerance to some of its effects. This can mean that the person needs to take more and more to get the feelings that they once had, right? As the amount taken increases, so does the risk of overdose. These teens become dependent on opioids. They experience withdrawal if they suddenly stop using the drug. The symptoms of withdrawal includes this intense restlessness, muscle strain and pain, insomnia, diarrhea, vomiting, cold flashes. These experiences of withdrawal can lead to depression and suicidal feelings, resulting in a cycle that can end with actually suicide or an unintentional dose. See, time release products such as talkng, designed to deliver pain relieving medication slowly over several hours, are sometimes crushed and snorted or even injected. This is a common problem, especially with Oxycontin, which is now being replaced with Oxyneo, which is more difficult to crush. Crushing slow release products causes the drug to enter the system all at once, sometimes resulting in an overdose. The breathing slows down, eventually stops, and ultimately death may occur. See, when they combine opioids with alcohol or some other prescription over the counter drugs, the risk of overdose dramatically increases. Opioids can impair decision making and may result in risky decisions that leads teens into being injured or even killed due to fighting, right? Having crashes or attempting suicide. You see some of these young people, they have a tendency to fool themselves into thinking these street drugs are much more harmful. However, the misuse of prescription opioids can be at least as harmful as using alcohol or street drugs. It's also illegal for anyone without a prescription to possess these drugs. Use or sharing prescription opioids is definitely illegal. If they're, for example, in school settings, if they're found in a student's locker or if they're in their car, they can be charged with possession of the drugs. So, as we mentioned, they get them from doctors. More than 2/3 who use opioid painkillers, they get them from home, right? The rest is through an incident of severe pain, but it is within your setting and you can do something about it. So if you have children, I implore you, if you have prescription drugs like fentanyl, opioids in your home, get rid of them. Understand that these young people are going to get access to them one way or another. You might have 20 pills in a container. You might not know if the pills have been taken. You might lose track of them. You might think, oh, I thought I had more than what I did have. Meanwhile, it could be your child who has taken it. Young people are experimenters. They're always trying something different. So they'll take things for the sake of taking them. Who knows? There's a host of reasons. But if they're not there, that is one way to protect the children if they're not in the environment. Think of it just like alcohol, right? If you have alcohol laying around, it's going to influence them eventually. That's how we are as human beings. We are easily influenced by everything. I just think that a lot of these young people, they just don't understand these drugs at all. They have lack of understanding how this is going to impact their lives. Why do these young people misuse these prescription opioids? That's a really good question. And you must ask yourself, because most teens and adults, they just don't understand the risks involved, right? Especially using these prescription drugs. They don't know where it's going to lead. Teens may use opioids non-medically for pleasure or to help them handle stress, especially during these times that we're going through. They don't understand that this is a risk to their lives. This thing could take over these drugs. And they can become so dependent. They think the drugs are safe to use because they are made in a pharmaceutical facility and have been prescribed by someone like a physician. So they think, oh, it's okay for me because a physician is prescribing them. Prescribed opioids are easier to get than street drugs, believe it or not. They have not learned other ways to help them cope with stress or unpleasant feelings. So immediately, if we put those in the hands of our children, especially at early ages, it could get out of control. We need to stress this more than anything. And as a parent, you cannot be silent. Don't let your children go into doctor's appointments, coming out with prescription without speaking to the doctor. Matter of fact, I strongly recommend you speak to the doctor beforehand if you can. Let them know you do not want your children taking these prescription drugs. You are aware of their effects and what they're going to do or possibly do. Do not make assumptions. Let them know. Protect them. Too many of you are out there afraid to speak up because the kid's big and you figure, oh, they got things under control and they got their own minds. No, you have to step in and let them know. No, I don't want it. Don't care. Tell them what you got to tell them, but don't give them any of these drugs. Besides death, there are risk factors for opioid misuse by adolescents, right? Impact to education, poor academic performance, right? This is high risk-taking level. Depression, regular use of alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine in addition to this. And this population of misuse that we have going on in 2020 is worrisome. And I don't think we're putting enough emphasis on the risk. So what can we do about this? That's why we're talking. We have to do something. We can't just sit there and look at other people falling apart, wonder what's happened with our children. Our children are running wild, and we don't know why. We're part of the problem if we don't open our eyes and do something about it. Education and controlled access can help reduce the risk of opioid misuse, especially by these young people. You got to create the opportunity for open and clear communication about medication and drug use, and ensure that everyone in your house knows what opioids are, their effects, and their risks. And if necessary, you got to call 911 if you realize a person has overdosed. That's where education comes in. Know what you're dealing with. And you're going to have to negotiate clear rules with your teens about the use of prescription opioids if they do get them, just as you do with alcohol and other drugs. Clear rules. And my number one clear rule is never take them in the first place. Make sure they don't even get access to them. And if they do, make sure they're not sharing them with others. If you or your teens need some pain relief, you're going to have to talk to the healthcare provider about trying alternatives to opioids, like ibuprofen or some Tylenol 1s or 2s. But if they are intent on using opioids because of the severe pain, try a less powerful type of opioid. It's not just one, there are less potent, right? Or just get fewer prescription pills. Some doctors are very liberal. And that's what you got to think about too. Some of them, believe it or not, make money off these drugs. So if they're prescribing them easily, because they're getting out there, people, there's some connect there. Think about it. People say, oh, no, yes, they are. These doctors, these physicians who prescribe, some of them benefit off of these companies. These companies pushing them, doctors make a certain percent. I don't care about the public healthcare system talking about, oh, doctors don't need it. Everyone is dipping their fingers at someone else's expense. And you just got to make sure it's not your child. But there are profits being made, billions of dollars every year off of these drugs, in addition to their regular salaries. Do not become a victim of this greed. You got to keep opioids and all other drugs in a safe and secure place, locked in a security box or a cabinet. It's got to be locked. I'm sorry. A lot of people just are leaving them in their bathrooms open, or they have them in their bedroom and these so-called secure places. Nah, these young people find ways to get at them, or they'll freak out. This is a big one too. When you have a child who is on the opioid drug and they're screaming for more pain relief, what do? What's the first thing we do? We get scared, we get nervous, we get anxious. And right, because they're yelling and screaming and acting up or even threatening us, we give in. So what do? We give in and we say, okay, we're going to get some more. However, this is going to be it. This is it. Meanwhile, because you didn't say no. And a lot of parents are scared. And some will say that you're going to regret it if you don't give it to them. You're going to regret it if you do give it to them. Either way, you're going to regret it, but you better stand up. Because kids today will yell, scream, put a fit on. They don't care as long as they get their needs met. You have to keep track of the number of pills in a container. If the number of pills doesn't match your normal use, or you need to refill your prescription sooner than expected, someone else may be taking your medication. And you're going to have to model safe and appropriate use of medication and other legal substances that you may use, even as alcohol is out there. Right? Watch who's watching you. Because they are watching. They're learning off of everything you do. If you consume pills regularly to deal with your depression or your stress, they're watching. These are habits that they're watching, and they may adopt. A lot of you want to point the finger at your children, but it starts somewhere, right? Always follow the directions on the label and call your healthcare provider if you have any questions. Never share your medication with your kids. I can't even tell you how many clients I have come in and I'm just like really blown away on how the children fall down so hard. And I could see direct correlation between the parents who have decided that they had some on hand and they know their children needed it, so they just passed it to them. And then that's where it began. So they don't want to look at it until we break it down. And then they realize that they were really involved in some of this. Yeah, they were. They had a hand in it. Right? They thought they were doing their child a favor. They're trying to be their best friend. They're passing them some medication that they had because they had it on hand. Right? At least once a year, clean out your medicine cabinet and bring leftover or that old medication to your local pharmacist for safe disposal. Do not flush medications or throw them in the garbage. Spread the word and tell people. Tell people in your family, your friends. Talk to your family and your friends about these prescription painkillers. And if your child is on them, let them know as well that they need to be aware that they cannot be going through them to get their prescriptions. Because if they can't get them through you, they're going to be trying to get them through your friends and the family members. Let them know how serious it is. I can't even tell you how many times I heard a client tell me that they cut them off and they found other ways to get the drug. So how do you recognize if there's a problem? Signs of the problem with opioids and other substances may include mood changes, irritability, depression, agitation, personality changes like a lack of interest in school or other activities, changes in the energy, sleep, or appetite, the friends they hang out with, the locations, the secretiveness, borrowing money or having extra cash, right? Even around the house, watch for missing pills or unfamiliar pills. If your teen has a prescription, keep control of the bottle and be aware if he or she runs out of pills too quickly or loses pills or requests refills. You got to be monitoring. Yes, you are the parent. You are the guardian. You are the person who has to take control because this thing could easily get out of control. And you are responsible. Too many people are like, that's not my responsibility. They're 18. Well, just because you put a number on it, they're still your children. I don't care if they're 18, 19, 20. Many parents know that a lot of kids aren't as mature as they need to be. They're still young. It's almost like they don't get it. And they're still acting like they're in their early teens. The decisions that they're making does not correlate with 18, 19. More like 15, 14, right? The way they're running around. So you got to take control and forget about that age. You got to keep in mind that these are your children. And they need monitoring. And they might need monitoring way past that mature age of 18, 19, 20, and 21. Believe it or not. And you got to get them help. And it's not going to be easy because one of the biggest barriers is getting them help when they're adults. Because many of the healthcare providers, they don't want to talk to you or me anymore. They only want to talk to them because they're adults. That's their problem. And you watch them go down the drain and you feel so helpless. But you still got to fight. You have the right to fight. And if you have to fight, and I mean, if you got to fight your kids to keep it out of their hands, I'm sorry, you got to go down. You got to take it serious because there are long-term effects. Not even that, there's death around the door if we don't control it. Don't worry about what everyone thinks about you, right? So if you do suspect a problem, you're going to have to talk to your team. And you're going to pick a good time to raise the issue. When they're calm, there are no distractions. Raising the issue when you are angry or when the person is under the influence of painkillers, that's not good at all. That's a terrible idea. They have to be calm, attentive, ready to listen. Let them know you care. That's the first thing you do. Say, listen, I love you. I care about you. But there's something that's really concerning me. And you raise the issue by telling them why you're raising the issue. And try to be specific as you can. Refer to specific events. Talk about the problematic behavior in a factual manner. Be honest, but be tactful. I'm really concerned about you. You didn't seem to be who you usually are. You're not yourself lately. Last night when I saw you, you were non-communicative. And I got a feeling that you may be taking some painkillers to get high. Oh, be prepared. Some of them might go into a rage. And that's what scares us. That scares a lot of people from having these conversations because they're afraid. We always put these assumptions in our mind. But the severity of this issue, you're going to have to drop that. You're going to have to talk about it. These are called courageous conversations, and we have to have them. We have to learn to be uncomfortable, right? We have to. Basically, we have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Oh, yeah. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but you got to do it. But you got to talk about it. And you got to still monitor them even when they say, no, you're way off base, or no, I'm fine. That doesn't mean you don't monitor them. No, no. And if you are unsure whether your teen is misusing painkillers, check it out in a concerned way. Accusations could lead the person to deny the problem, even if it does exist, of course. Ask questions that encourage your teen to talk rather than gives you the yes or no's. Focus and let them know that you're being affected as well by this painkiller use that they're engaging in, how it's impacting you and the family and them. Be specific, but offer support. Let them know you are prepared to help and change things, and you will contribute to their success, and you will help them get through, and you will support them. But you need them to do the work. You can't do it alone if this is the case. Get support from someone you trust. Don't try to handle it just yourself. Talk about it, because it can drive you crazy if you're being denied and you're still seeing these children of ours falling down, going through it. Get support. Talk to people. Get family members involved, a counselor, your doctor, or even a religious leader that you may be going to. Talk about it. Tell them what you're going through. Explain the situation. If you do encounter an overdose, you need to know that opioids slow down the part of the brain that controls breathing. And signs of an overdose include that slow breathing, pale skin, bluish skin, or dark skin, depending on your culture, and a coma. The person will not wake up despite what you do. If you suspect an overdose, immediately call 911. You're not sure what it is, but call 911. I'm sorry. You can't wake them up. What? And where do you get some help? Well, I strongly suggest that you look in your immediate community. Talk to your doctor. Go online to professional healthcare websites like CAMH, Center for Addiction and Mental Health, right? Or if you're in Ontario, you go to Connects Ontario. That's CONNEX Ontario. And call 1-800-531-2600. Right? So the website is www.connexontario. That's ontario.ca. Go to the website. Get some information. All of you, no matter what country you're in, you should know about programs in your neighborhood in all different areas of concern. The addiction center, the hospitals, the community organizations that offer support. If you're raising a family, you need to know in your community what services are offered. Unfortunately, there are too many people that just run to the hospital. And that's because there's a number of you that don't look for support. You just go when it's out of control or if somebody gets hurt. So you run to the hospital. But you're not looking at resources within your community. And you need to do that. Is the moment you start something, you're going to have to educate yourself, get out there, get active. And if you see a neighbor's child, or if you have a child and they're discussing with you about a friend of theirs that are indulging in opioid addiction, getting involved in excessive alcohol use or substance abuse, then you are obligated, and I do mean obligated, to get some support or help and tell their parents. That hands-off approach does not work. They're all of our children and it impacts all of us. So you should not be sitting around wondering, oh, I'm not going to get involved. That's their problem. I'm sorry. If you see some young person falling apart, don't make the assumption, oh, their parent doesn't care. Some parents are dealing with children who are already in the mid stage of their addictions where they feel helpless, or they feel they're threatened, or they feel that they don't have control of their situation anymore. What you can do is offer help or discuss it with people in the community to see what maybe you can do to help this person. You don't have to definitely be in their face, but you can do certain things or inform your child on supports that are out there. Maybe they could pass it to their friends. Somehow you have to have some input. It's not good to look the other way. You must have your say in some sort of way. Find a way. But there are parents out there we make assumptions about that, oh, they're not good parents. And not everyone is a great parent. But that doesn't mean we get to judge, we get to point the finger. Instead of us supporting them, we judge them. And that's wrong. Totally wrong. Everyone goes through their ups and downs in life. And sometimes it gets out of control. And they may be defensive. They might be telling you to stay out of their business, which is understandable. But showing you care, sometimes it's going to explode in your face. But the point is that you're trying, not denying. So, if anything, get a hold of a third party and let them know. If there's a mother involved dealing with the child and the father's not in the picture and you're aware of where the father is, get a hold of him. Let them know this is a situation, right? We're too busy not taking action because we're afraid to get our feelings hurt. Someone says stay out of your business, so you run around there, well, that wasn't my business. It's all our business. When we have children and our children have someone who's involved in that, what do you think eventually could happen to your child? Oh, my child's too strong for that. Listen, birds of a feather do flock together. A lot of these old sayings are true, but we forgot about them because we think, oh no, not our child. Our child knows better. Look at one of the biggest things for youth today is influence from their peers. I mean, a lot of you parents don't understand as your children get older, they get less time with you and more time out there in the community with their friends or with other people who are influencing them. You think you've grounded them with their morals, but everyone has their moments of weakness. And the more the negative risk factors are in their face, they're susceptible to it. So we got to change our mindset. We have to know that that child over there could be my child. And if that child could be my child, I'm going to do what I can to do whatever I can to make sure that my child is in that environment. A lot of you are like, well, I'm going to just tell my child not to hang around with them. And it may appear that they do stop hanging around. But you might not know when you're taking care of your business what's going on behind closed doors. But the moment you become aware, you have to do something. You can't just sit back. So we all have a role to play. We need to treat everyone with respect and acknowledge that we are all human beings. And if we can do something to support our fellow human beings, we do that. Forget the culture, the religion, the gender, the race, all these excuses for sitting back, us against them mentality. It's running rampant in today's society. Unfortunately, these are excuses that we give ourselves. We give ourselves too many excuses today not to act. Oh, well, I was afraid. That's not my business. I know. That's what many of us say until it comes knocking at our door. I can't even tell you how many times I've had people tell me, well, I didn't think it could happen to me. I didn't think my kid would even go there. I didn't even know what was going on. Or it got out of control and it's the other person's fault. Sometimes it's not about fault. It is what it is. And we need to focus on resolving the problem, not placing the blame. Well, I want to say thank you to all my listeners. We had a really good conversation today, and I think it's so important that you need to look at those people, which are our people, and change your mindset and understand that just walking away, looking away, is not good enough. We still have things that we can do. And I mean, if it's not about doctor's appointments or going to physicians or getting involved, the one thing we can do is talk to the police even and say, look, you know what, are there any organizations in the community that might be able to help with this issue? They're going to know they're dealing with kids all the time that go through it. They're picking them up off the street, taking them to shelters, group homes. They're involved. They're not just enforcers. However, we like to think of the police as enforcers, but they're not just enforcers. They have experience with some young people, and they can give you some information, some resources that may be helpful. And see, this is also an issue too that I find. A lot of, even I'm going to talk about people in the black community. I'm sorry, we got to go there because the truth is, some of them, not all of them, but some of them have the mentality because they're against the police, because of some of the strife that's going on in the world, right? So the mentality is us against them. In certain situations, it may be justified. However, when it comes to your children, you might not get help, or you might not talk to them, or might not get their support because you have this attitude that you've been raised with. You've seen injustices, but your child is not taking the, oh, I'm not going to go to them because there's no way they're going to be able to help. They're not going to understand. They're ignorant. They're racist against us. We don't want their help. Well, you might not want their help, but if they're bringing your child home from doing something, being on those drugs, or they have to come and deliver some terrible news to you, you might ask yourself, why didn't I try that? Instead of the blame game. So when it comes to our children, all bets are off the table. Everyone needs to be alerted and involved. And you need to get as many people as possible to support you and your child. And that's where they talk about this village. It takes a village to raise a child. But we've put up all these walls in front of us, right? We've separated ourselves. And we can't do that. So instead of getting help where it's needed, we neglect our children and ourselves because we categorized everyone under one system. And you can't do that. We don't want to be categorized, so we shouldn't be doing the same. Not all people who are police officers are all racist. And not all black people are all thieves. But that's an assumption. We don't want the stereotype, so don't give it. So make sure when it comes to your child, you're going through everything. Oh, yes. Are there problems in the community? For sure. But work at it until you get what you need to get to support you and yours and people in the community. Put them together whether you like it or not. Sometimes you got to have those courageous conversations. But when it comes to kids, our youth, we have to unpack the baggage. We have to start seeing clear because the issues are here. We have a serious situation of drug dependency in North America. And it has nothing to do with wealth, education, technology. It's a people problem. And we, more than likely, are the problem. We, more than likely, are not looking at our circumstance and our situation as people and saying we could do better. It's turned into the us against them mentality. That's not my child. That's that person right there. We got to change our focus. And that's the only way things will get better is if we start demanding that this be priority, that we take care of our youth, and we get politicians involved and community members involved to focus on supporting and preventing and encouraging our youth to get help when they need it and to make proper decisions. So it starts with us. The onus is on us. We have to lead the way and our youth will follow. But we have to get involved. We have to take some action. So I want to say thank you to all my listeners and spread the word like the wise old bird. And take care of yourself and take care of others. Thank you. Have a good one.